So let's talk about the feet. Not the foot fetish feet. No. Let's talk about the feat that one Roronoa Zoro performed in chapter 1009 as this video is recording this chapter of One Piece. Damn, boy! For me, it's been a very slow week this week, Things happening all over the place. It happens, it's life. But because of that, this video should be coming out either Thursday, Friday, but by then, there will be some scandalous stuff out there, duh. So no, hey! If you spoil, you.
Tonight, you.
That's right. You already know. Because I know some dudes that are globally. Make no mistake.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will...
Now, I'm going to guess that Zoro won't have a feat that will outperform what we just saw in 1009. He may, but I have my doubts on that one. Because what we see in this chapter, I think, is probably one of Zoro's best feats of the entire series. Period. Zoro blocking the conquest of the sea, or as the scans say, the oceanic conquest.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Yes, I do botch the scanlation name for the entire video. Deal with it. For about a second, or a sec, how I don't perceive it exactly. But he blocked it for a very small period of time, allowing Law to shambles the boys to safety as the oceanic conquest spans the entire backside of Onigashima. Zoro lived. Zoro lived. That was stunning. Is this Zoro's best feat? You can argue it is. You can absolutely argue that this is Zoro's best showcased throughout the entire series of One Piece. First of all, how powerful is the conquest of the sea? In my mind, this attack would have destroyed the island. It was actually aimed at the island of Onigashima. And Onigashima has a lot of supersized structures. It's not necessarily wide, but it has, I think, a very large surface area because there's so many gigantic structures. Like, we did a video way back when talking about how the umbrella, when they first arrived to Onigashima, the umbrella could have been the size of the Empire State Building. Onigashima is huge in terms of scalability, but it can still fit inside of Wano country. But it's about overall surface area, I'd argue. If that umbrella is the size of the Empire State Building, then the skull, the horns could equal maybe the size of Pika, if not even more so. Based on that, the conquest of the sea would have destroyed the entire island and then some, I'd argue that. The only things I think that are stronger, as far as I can think of at this point in time, are number one, Whitebeard and Blackbeard's oceanic tilt, where like they grab the atmosphere itself and they drag it down, and then we see the seas tilting on each side. I say that's a pretty powerful move, absolutely. A lot of folks say it's not an attack, but I would say it is. And part of the reason why is because if you replace the ocean water with land, dude, that entire section of land is gonna get leveled. And that's a huge section of land. It is absurd. That's the first thing. The second thing, NL's Raigo. I don't care what anyone says. To this day, NL's Raigo is de facto one of the most powerful attacks in One Piece in terms of DC, without question. NL's Raigo would have vaporized Upper Yard. Vaporized it. Completely obliterated. That is a tremendous feat of DC. NL to this day has one of the most destructive attacks to date. That is factual. No one can deny it.
Yeah, that's pretty true. That's true, and yeah, that's true.
That's number two. Number three, in theory, in big Botex theory, Don Chinjao in his prime when he cut the ice sheet continent. Now, the reason why that's in theory is because Prime Don Chinjao is complicated. Because the ice sheet continent itself was like super ice. It wasn't regular ice, it was super ice that could withstand fire, cannonballs, all that stuff. What we see is not an entire ice sheet cut per se, but the crack itself could maybe go on for a prolonged distance that we just don't see. And again, in the lore itself, initially, it is stated that he split the continent. So, I don't know. Garp did destroy a few mountains. I think it was like 6 or 8 mountains to train for Dan Chinjao. So you could argue maybe it's equivalent to that, but it's a hard, very hard thing to scale. So Prime Dan Chinjao, yes, but it's like all in theory. Maybe, in terms of the Oceanic Conquest, maybe Zunisha's attack. Because Zunisha obviously is a monolithic creature. That's stupidly huge. So someone like Zunisha would still tower over Onigashima, yes. And one trigger attack, you could argue, it maybe could destroy it. I think what's more likely is that the one trunk attack could probably wipe out the entire large mansion in Onigashima, or let's say a large section of Onigashima, rather than the entire island being obliterated. So let's say, for the time being, the trunk attack is right underneath the Oceanic Conquest in terms of DC. So it's a tough sell. It's a very tough sell. But there is one thing that's also a kind of tough sell too, in terms of what could destroy an island, which would be, I think, the Noah Ark situation in Fishman Island. Technically speaking, you can't argue that it is an attack because it was initiated by Von der Decken and his abilities. Fishman Island is actually a very large island, I'd argue. And the main reason why is because Fishman Island can actually house several Sea Kings. Each Sea King is at a minimum 5,000 meters tall, which means that each Sea King is taller than Mount Matterhorn. And it took several of those Sea Kings to move and drag the Noah Ark. Now, this was written way back when in the One Piece Deep Blue characters worlds, but that was done almost a decade ago in 2012. Since then, a lot of things have changed in terms of Oda scalability. Like, I think he said before that Watatsumi was 300 meters tall, and now he went down to 80 meters tall. So if you want to do like the equivalent here for the Sea Kings, let's say that the Sea Kings are around 1,000 meters, all right, something like that. Again, 5,000 initially, but that was a while back. So you could argue that the Noah Ark, in terms of sheer scale, coming towards Fishman Island would be something equivalent to the Oceanic Conquest. But again, the nature of the Noah Ark situation and that attack are very different. I'm just trying to essentially compare things that could destroy entire islands. That being said, what Zoro blocked for that 1 second, I think, was an island destruction feat, and he blocked it for that 1 second, which was very impressive. Now, I don't necessarily want to get into the semantics of the destruction of certain island sizes. So, for example, destroying Wano Country, that entire island, would be a country-level destruction feat compared to, let's say, Onigashima, which is clearly smaller, which would be an island-level destruction feat, because, of course, not all islands are created equally. A pretty good example would be destroying Skypiea versus destroying Upper Yard. Upper Yard is a much bigger island. So yes, they're all islands, but the scale and the size of the island, they do differ, and they differ drastically. So there are semantics in destroying small islands to mid-sized islands to very large islands that could be actually country-size. And all of this would disregard certain things like attack potency, where an attack may not actually destroy an island or a country, but the potency of the attack could be the equivalent of an island destroying attack. So, for example, when Luffy did the King Kong gun against Doflamingo, we see the city cave in after he slams Dolphy into the bedrock. However, he did break through the 16 holy bullets, and each of those strings we know can actually cut and withstand meteorites. So you can kind of equate to, well, how many strings did he actually break through, which would equal how... Oh, no. We can go down those alleyways, but it's going to be a much longer video, so let's not do that. At the end of the day, this is not a durability feat, because Zoro didn't tank a single thing. What Zoro did was that he blocked it via his strength for one, or again, how do you perceive it, a second. I say a second, because that's what kids said in the video translation, a second. And then he endured the damage that he was suffering, which apparently was a lot of damage.
Now that's a lot of damage!
To the point where at the end of the chapter, just by holding Prometheus back, he was coughing up blood. Prometheus did no damage to Zoro, because he was going, mama, mama, but Zoro was so messed up by that one attack that he was coughing up a lot of blood. So I scale this as an endurance and a strength feat, not a durability feat. For me, high gauge durability is essentially tanking. Tanking in the sense of Either you take no damage or you take virtually no damage. That's tanking. That is durability. That's how I scale it. So, good example here. Big Mom tanks damn near everything. Big Mom, things go dink on her. Not in her, that's good. No. I mean, to be fair.
Hell no!
Like, let me stop. My mind's in the gutter. Let me just. Yu-Gi-Moto, open your mind! Big Mom, a lot of things bounce off her. They do virtually no damage. No damage. But compare her to, let's say, Whitebeard. Whitebeard in Marineford War was taking stab wounds, taking bullet wounds. He was getting lit up. But he was muscling through all these attacks. But these attacks were still doing damage to his body. And we know for a fact, because at the end of Whitebeard's life, you have that fantastic stat sheet of the bullet wounds, of the cannonball wounds, of the stab wounds. It's all listed right then and there. So Whitebeard endured a lot of suffering and pain, but he still muscled through. And Zoro's the same way. Zoro was able to endure the attack, but the attack was so powerful, and only for 1 second. So it's a fantastic strength feat, and I'd argue it's probably Zoro's best strength feat in the entire series. I'd argue that absolutely. Endurance feat, it's a bit harder to kind of gauge because it depends on how Zoro is coming in this arc. Hawkins prophesized that at the end of the arc, there'll be a 90% chance of either Luffy or Zoro, or both these guys, Luffy and Zoro, being alive. The anime and the Viz translation differ in what Hawkins says, but it's still 90% chance. So in my mind, that means, because they won't die obviously, that they're about to get put through the ringer. Like they're in the cell with the booty warrior. They're about to get put through the ringer. It's about to get really, really bad for the boys. So Zoro come end this arc and moving forward is gonna play into the whole endurance thing of actually enduring the attack itself, because compared to, let's say, him taking Luffy's pain in the pre-time skip, you can argue that was his best endurance feat, because after he took Luffy's pain and his anguish and his fatigue and so on at the end of Thriller Bark, for the entire pre-time skip, Zoro was never the same again and needed a time skip to fully recover from that. So you can argue that is his best endurance feat. But strength feat, I think, yeah, blocking that attack, like just, let me get 2 swords real quick. There we go. Blocking that for even 1 second, you can say is akin to, let's say, blocking Zunisha's attack for a good second, or even the Noah arc for a good second. It can be comparable on that front. But in the process, Zoro's body gets heavily, heavily damaged just by blocking the attack for a second or a few seconds. Now, if you want to factor in attack potency, you can easily upscale the Conquest of the Sea to large island, potentially country, potentially continent level of DC. However, for this video, I want to keep it, again, very, very simple and not get into that can of worms. So this, I think, is Zoro's best strength feat in the series. A very impressive strength feat on the part of one Roronoa Zoro, absolutely. And probably one of his best, either number 1 or number 2, probably his best endurance feat. So, on that note, that's my stance on Roronoa Zoro's feat of blocking the Conquest of the Sea. Very impressive. In my mind, once again, Zoro's gonna have a pretty big shot on Kaido, guaranteed, and then maybe other bigger shots as well, but depends. But ultimately speaking, that big shot will surpass the Scabbard shot. That's it. That's it. I don't think it's gonna defeat Kaido, because that's Luffy's shot.
True.
I think that alone will not be on par with blocking the Conquest of the Sea for a second. I don't think so. But hey, I could be wrong. So let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do, because I guarantee you all, you have a device called Zamasu. You use Zamasu to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad. I'm gonna see y'all later. Take care, stay safe, and have a nice one.